Ladies and gentlemen, today is going to be a podcast which I enjoy a lot. And I hope you will too. Because at the end of the day, we're going to be talking about different personalities within a family business. It could apply to business as a whole. And it could apply to your life. But within a family business, it adds a new dimension. Because they will affect how things flow. I'm not going to grade by saying this is better than that, or these are people who you want to have. They're going to be there no matter what you do. All of these personalities. And by the way, a person can shift his or her personality with age, or can shift his or her personality with a position, i.e. a situation. But keep them in mind. Because sometimes what we don't pay attention to is what comes to bite us in the proverbial backside. Let's start with what most people would assume in a family business would be the case. He's a draconian authoritarian. And this is the person you know what to expect from him or her. They're the ones who are going to set the law, verbally berate you, make your life miserable, what you would consider torture. They would shout at you because you didn't do it the exact way that they wanted. They're the ones who are constantly telling you how it should be done, how you should, pick up the paper, how the paper should look like, what color should it look like, all these stupid little things. And they micromanage. Oh my God, they love to micromanage. Authoritarians do this because they have a deficiency from within. They don't trust. I know you don't. I'm right, you're wrong. When you have a personality like this in front of you, unless you happen to be a very strong person internally, not necessarily in position, don't challenge them. You will lose. They will attack you, and it will be a pleasure for them to attack you. And the more you fight back, the more pleasure they get out of attacking you. These are the people who you defeat only through time and good words and actions. They can't fight it. An authoritarian is another way of saying a bully. Two people can win against a bully. One, if you're strong enough, stand up against him or her. The other one is be extremely nice. It's called death through kindness. You kill their anger. You kill their hatred. And they're not necessarily bad. A bully is not necessarily bad. There are some people who by their nature they can't help themselves. They are bad. And they want to bully and harm and hurt people. They can't help themselves. And then there are those who are bullies because they don't trust you. So help them bridge that. Help them trust you. The more you can bridge that, you'll be amazed how fast this person will become your friend and will start fighting for you and defending you. But you need to help them get over their issues. The worst person interacting with a bully is the type of person who will ever so slightly, they'll agree with everything the bully says, but ever so slightly shift things on the bully. It knocks them off. It knocks them off balance. But when they do discover this, the wrath they're going to feel from the bully is going to be something spectacular. Don't want to do that. As I said, this is the type of person you will interact with in a family business, usually in an authoritarian position, usually an elderly person, usually, not to be what you call a gender bias here, but it's usually a male who wants to ensure a certain mindset, a certain legacy, a certain idea, whatever the case may be, is pushed down. And it's usually the way he or she, in this case again, he, has learned in the past. His parents taught him that, his grandparents taught his parents that, and subsequently he or she, again, most likely he, will be pushing this idea down. Because that's the way they think an idea gets carried or thought gets executed. I don't mind working with bullies because if you understand the triggers, you can work with them. There are certain triggers, leave it alone, you're not going to win. And there are certain triggers they're not fighting you with, but this is the only method they understand how to get things done. If you shift that, they will shift with you. Then there are those who are arrogant. And this personality is a horrible personality to work with. Because their ego doesn't allow them to accept anyone but themselves to be the authority. They know everything. They understand everything. They will talk with a lot of, what would perceive, an air of knowledge, an air of, I'm incorruptible, I'm always right, and you're wrong. And no matter what you tell them, I'm right and you're wrong. And they also think everybody is talking about them, and everybody is concerned about them, and nothing in this business or in this family matters but them. And when people sit and gather and talk, all they're thinking is they're talking about me. So me is the key concern. I won't call them psychopaths. They're damn close to it. They will baffle you with things that they think are knowledge-based information. You might have this in a case in a board meeting where somebody comes and tells you, oh, this number is this and this percentage is that. And all he's doing is trying to put a shield around him that you need to be able to deflect. A lot of people might not be math inclined. So when they put the shield is put around them, saying math this and statistics that and numbers this, they go, oh, this guy must know what he's talking about. So therefore, we listen to him. And that builds up his arrogance from inside. So me inflates like a balloon. It doesn't have to be numbers. It could be he's a great orator. And a person who really talks about himself a lot usually is a great orator. And he'll talk himself into positions and places. And look at me, I'm meeting person X, or look at me, or he'll tell you a story how wonderful he is and how wonderful things have become since he's taken over, or he's done this great job. Or they will hardly bring in co-players. He don't want co-players. He doesn't want people to take some of the limelight. He doesn't. And by the way, I'm using he in this case. You could also have she. This is a trait. I used to teach in the American University of Sharjah. I used to teach fundamentals of family business. And I try to explain this aspect. There are female traits and there are male traits. And there are females who have male traits and there are males who have female traits. It doesn't necessarily talk about the sexuality. It's talking about utilizing a trait in a position. So a trait of a male is quick decision making. A trait of a female is consensus building. You might have men who like to build up consensus. That's a female trait. It doesn't necessarily mean that he's a female. You might have women who like to do quick decision making. That's a male trait. It doesn't necessarily mean that this woman is a man. But sometimes it's hard to get over these concepts and ideas. I'm pretty sure I'm going to have offended someone at some point with what I'm saying. But let's forget about being offended and trying to actually understand the points that are being brought up. The method might not be the perfect method that you like to hear, but it's the point. The gist of the matter is what you should be focusing on. And going back to the issue of the arrogant person. So the arrogant person, again, wants him to be seen, heard, wants to be the life of the party, if you want. In board meetings, you will have a dominant voice. This dominant voice is the arrogant person, because he wants to be, and he or she wants to be heard, wants to be seen as they are knowledgeable. Is that good? Maybe. Is that bad? Maybe. That would depend on the situation. To interact with this person, it's best, if possible, to avoid, because you're not going to win. He or she, I don't care how much facts you throw at the person, he or she is so in love with himself or herself, no matter what is told, their version of the incident is the only version that should be accepted and retold. And everybody else is just a naysayer. And if you can prove him or her to be wrong, be aware that they will go on the warpath against you. It might not happen immediately, but believe me, he or she has a list of people, and you will be on that list. And when you least expect it, he or she will be the person harming you. If you're lucky, they will say it in your face. But that's not likely to happen. He will most likely talk about you behind your back. Because even though he or she is arrogant, most of those people who are arrogant are cowards. They never stand in for your face. They do not like to confront. They like to sit back and let things happen in the discussion. And then they will strike from behind, because it's easier for them to hit when you can't see. So an advice, when you interact with an arrogant person, the less you interact with him or her, the better you are. Mentally, you'll be much better, you'll be much happier, because you can't win with them. Preferably, if you can get rid of them, so much the better. Because they are a very cancerous type of person. The less you interact with these people, the better. The third type of character, and by the way, I'm going to go through the worst and then go to the better. The worst type of characters you interact with, to the better. I said I'm not going to moralize on this thing, but well, let's face it, I can't think of a positive way of talking about an arrogant person. The third type of person, and this is the one that you really, really should be aware of, because they're the ones who will cause the most damage. It's those who smile in your face and stab you in the back. You think they're on board with whatever you're telling, whatever you're saying. You think that these are the people who you're going to rely on. Some of them might actually really want to support you, but their self-interest is so strong that they can't help but stab you in the back. When you interact with people like this, it will take a while for you to realize who they are. And the worst part is when you realize somebody who's close to you, because they're family members. I'm talking, again, remember, this is talking about personalities within family businesses, and they're usually family members. When you interact with people like that, where they are telling you something, and you're thinking, I can rely on his or her support in an issue or another, and because they're afraid of losing some advantage or getting hurt by being attacked or alienated, they're not willing to stand up. They don't have the courage. They will join the herd and attack you. Not necessarily belittling or verbally, no, but by being quiet. And then there's a lovely Arabic saying, "Sakat an al-haq, shaitan akhras." The one who's quiet about the truth is a quiet devil, because he or she is not telling the situation, standing up and saying what is the right thing. They're happy to be part of the group, the herd, because it benefits them. But they don't want to harm you necessarily, so they'll smile in your face and they'll tell you all the platitudes that you want to hear. They'll say how wonderful you are, how much I love you, etc. But let's face it, your benefit, my benefit, I'm choosing my benefit over yours. No backbone. You don't have to worry too much about them once you identify them, because you can then start to expect this from them. And you can interact with them. How you interact with them, to what degree you interact with them, how much you get angry with them, that is an issue that you will encounter over time. Again, because these are all family members. Again, whether I'm talking about the arrogant person or I'm talking about the bully, the backstabber, etc., these are all family members. And they're not necessarily that case all the time. But this is a general trait that you will find across in different personalities within family members. Then you come across the very rare ones. Those are the idealists. Those are the ones who stand up no matter how much it costs them, because they want to get a point across. They believe in something so strongly, and they're not arrogant about it. They're willing to listen and flex, etc. But they believe in it as a principle, that even if it means their enemy is right, or their opponent, not enemy, their opponent is right, they will stand up and say, my opponent is right, I accept that I was wrong, but they will defend that principle because it's a principle they truly believe in. These people in a family business are exceptionally beneficial, but it can also be harmful, because sometimes an idealist doesn't give you space to be pragmatic and to flex. So if the person is on the spectrum of idealist, at the very end of idealist, meaning he is the ultimate idealist, he or she might actually be negative to interact with. If he or she is a bit more pragmatic in terms of, this is my ideal, and as long as you haven't broken that ideal, but I'm less focused on that ideal because I want to get something done, he or she is someone you can work with, and they actually benefit the business. They are key. These idealists are key because they are the litmus test, the flags that you will have in the different interactions that you have within a family. That you will see if he or she believes in it, it must be good, because he or she is willing to fight for it. These are the type of people that you want to interact with and have on board, but not necessarily be your best friend. The other character is the pragmatist. Now, the pragmatist is what you want to have majority of the company, a majority of the family being. Yes, I believe the sky is blue, but I'm willing to say it's bluish green, bluish gray. If that will create consensus and happiness between the family members, I'm willing to accept that it not necessarily has to be blue. I'll accept it to be greenish, maybe at the sunset it's red, yellow. I'll accept different colors because I want to have consensus and I want to have things move. I might be an idealist in terms of how I want to get things done, but if I do that, things break, so I will take a step back from my idealism and allow things to function and move. So therefore, having those people, or being a member, or interacting with people like them, pragmatists, makes things move, makes things happen. And you can revisit a certain issue later. But at the time, it's a necessity, and you get things done. So these are the family members who you want to work with because they can move things and get things done. And the ones that I enjoy the most working with, these are the type of people who build empires. And they are the consensus builders. Now, not necessarily pragmatist, because pragmatist is a person who will fix a situation as and when it happens. But the consensus builder is the person who's going out of his or her way to build up an idea and a direction. And because you're willing to take the time to build a consensus, it means there's buy-in. And when there's a buy-in, you don't need an authoritarian to direct you, because everybody sees the benefit and will push towards it. These are the right people to have in any business. If you have time, and this is key, in any family business, if you have time, they're building a consensus within the business, but they're also building a consensus within the family. So maybe an ideal business for the business might not be ideal for the family. So I might want to take away that aspect and not do it in the business, because the family will not be comfortable with it. And vice versa. It might be something that the family loves, but it might not be very good for the business. But by having a consensus and talking to one another and interacting with one another and sharing ideas and going back and forth until everybody has built in the acceptance of that idea in both the business and the family, then it becomes a foundation. And when it becomes a foundation, you don't need to push it anymore. It becomes something that everybody believes in and everybody accepts and everyone moves forward on. These are the type of people who are key to building empires, because they're not building it for the now, which are what pragmatists do. They're building it for the future. You have others who are also disconnected, and nobody wants to talk about them. Family members, the personalities, they're disconnected. They have nothing to do with reality. They're living in their own world. They're talking as though their world exists. And you have to deal with them, because they're part of the family and maybe even part of the business. But what do you do with them? How do you interact with a person who's completely disconnected? Now, there are some disconnections that are medical. The person could be bipolar. The person could be autistic. The person could be something along those lines. Those are different people. You need compassion with these people, because it's not something that they chose. It's something that has happened to them. But there are others who really have a disconnect from everything and anything that's happening. And no matter how much you try to explain and show and prove, they're not arrogant. And I need to differentiate this. An arrogant person actually believes he is the right thing. This person who has a disconnect is not fighting to prove a point. It's just that this is the way the world is for him or her. Now, a savant. The way a savant looks at numbers is different than the way you and I would look at a number. They can see numbers as colors. They can see numbers as connections, buildings. They're not necessarily trying to be pushing an idea through the business, through the family. But this is the way they look at the world. They're not bad, but they can have a negative effect. Because if you're talking about PR and how people are perceived in social position, social settings, etc., and this person starts talking about what he or she believes in, and they start thinking, oh, this is a member of the family. And subsequently, all the family is brushed by the same brush. Again, it's not that this person's bad. It's just that this person has a disconnect. And you need to know how to handle that. Because in this case, they are people who need support and need help. Not help meaning fixing their problem. Help as in how to interact and work within the family structure. That part they don't understand. So they need help in that. There are too many characters that you will come across as a family. Some good, some bad. As a person, how you interact and how you absorb the different personalities within your family and how you adjust to them will mean the key to your success or your failure. Having the ability to understand how to get people on board and side with you, if you're ready to compromise, is great. But there are some times when you need to be an idealist. If you want to have harmony, consensus building is the right way. If you want to have harmony, those who are arrogant, and I repeat, arrogant is the worst people, is the worst. Backstabbers are also there. A bully is not necessarily bad. It's just how do you interact with that person and bring them on board. But if you get to understand the different characters and the different personalities within your family business, and you know how to best work with them, there's a great chance you will succeed in whatever you're trying to do. If, on the other hand, you can't figure this out, that's a recipe for disaster. Be quick to learn. Not everything that's said is meant. And our bodies will send signals before our words are carried into the other person's ears. When a person smiles, it doesn't necessarily mean that he is happy. We need to understand the personalities of the people we interact with, and once we do that, we have the key to either success, and if we fail to use it, to failure.